All right. Welcome to the introduction to our mixer and sound system. On this video, I will be giving a run through as to how the system needs to be set up, as well as things that can go wrong in the setup and what those mistakes or incorrect things might cause, so you can troubleshoot problems. First, an introduction to the setup here. This is the sound mixer here. As you can see by looking at it, there's a lot of knobs and buttons. I will go through which ones you need to use, check, and which ones we should not be messing with. And as well as which cables should be unplugged at the end of the night, which ones should not. Okay, so that's our mixer. Down below, this box right here, this is your power supply box that provides your voltage. Okay, this is a professional feedback controller suppression system. It's there just to sort of help take out some of the noise and feedback that can be created. This is your EQ. It's a monitor EQ. It just simply controls the frequencies that are sent to the monitor. And then finally, this is your power amp. This actually provides the amp power to these unpowered monitor speakers. Okay. All of these items are used, these three things are just used for the monitors. Okay. The system will technically work without those. You just won't be able to get monitor sound if any of these three are turned off. All right, in order to turn this system on, there is a switch right there on the front. That should be the only switch that is used to turn anything on and off. By using other switches, you create confusion and make it difficult for the next person, okay? All right, coming around to the back of the system, it's a little hard to see. There's a flashlight in here. Let me turn that on. Make it a little easier. Okay. All right, you can see from the back there is a power switch right there. That should always be on. Okay. We're using this right there. That's the back of your power source. All right, that controls the amps, prevents anything from happening to power surges, anything like that happening to the mixer or the rest of the equipment, and everything is powered through this. So as long as you turn that on and off, you will always be able to shut off everything in one fell swoop. Below, you see the back of the feedback suppression system. Everything should run out from our board into the feedback suppression system. Then it runs out from that into our EQ, and then finally into the amp, and then out from the amp over here where those banana type clips are. That actually is plugged into the wrong spot. That should be plugged into the center right there. Okay, so you see, it should be plugged into the center like that. Okay. There are a lot of different ways to set this up. You have theoretically the ability to run multiple outputs into the two separate speakers. You run them on separate channels, and you can power both of these amps on their own. You can then control and give everyone a different mix in each amp. I would recommend against doing that to keep it simple. Simply use one mix, run everything through, and daisy chain the amps together in order, or the monitor speakers together in order to create simplicity. Okay. On top of the board, the mixer, you see each channel starts at the top with the gain. This is, if you imagine it's a dam at the beginning of the river, it controls how much water or sound is allowed into each channel. If you try and imagine each channel as its own sort of river of sound, this is sort of the dam at the beginning. This controls the entire flow. This is a low cut button here. This button will simply remove some of the low end noise, and most of the time when that's engaged, that's a good thing. The only time I take that off is if it's someone playing a bass or a kick drum or something where you want some low end sound, you leave that off. But normally I put the low cut on. This is your high frequency channels. This is the EQ. This gives the higher end frequencies. This controls the mid-range frequencies. First, you decide which frequency you want to control. It goes from, what is it, 1.5 to 15, okay? And then you can control, actually this controls which frequency. It goes from 150 to 3.5 thousand, 3,500, okay? And this controls what level. So you can either boost a mid frequency or you can pull the mid frequency out, okay? I usually like to take some of the mids out, set it sort of like that for vocals, because it creates less of a muddy sound, makes it a little more clear. This is your low frequency. This creates sort of the bass end in each sound. For most instruments, I keep it set straight up and down. For vocals, I'll roll off some of the mids, I give a little bit of a boost in some of the highs, and I roll off a little bit of the lows. And that helps most people out. If they have kind of a high screechy voice, you might want to cut back on some of those highs a little bit. Auxiliary 1 is how we run our monitors, okay? The green one is auxiliary 1. This is the auxiliary 1 output, okay? Auxiliary 2 currently on a regular basis is not being used. The only time this will really be used is when you are running festival sound on 4th of July or St. Patrick's Day or any other big festival where you have all your speakers out there. You will run auxiliary 2 out right here to our big bad boy speakers that are in storage right now, and you will control that on each channel with this knob. As I said earlier, if you wanted to get to more time consuming and controlling of your monitors, you could certainly run auxiliary 2 parallel to auxiliary 1 and have 2 separate monitor mixes, but I would recommend against that. This light purple channel here, this is your effects. This will create the reverb, and we'll put however much reverb you want on each channel. Vocals, reverb's great. I take it off of any instrument channels, generally speaking, because most musicians will run a pedal or through their amp. They will control their own effects. So I basically just use that for vocals. The yellow is your pan. I mean, if you had a stereo system, you could pan left or right. We run a completely mono system, so the pan does absolutely nothing. This is your mute button. Obviously, it mutes this channel when it is engaged and the red light is on. No sound will come either through the monitors or through the mains on this channel. PFL is a button you will use a lot. It stands for pre-fader level, and this will allow whatever channel the PFL is engaged on, it will show over at this light here, it'll show their levels, and I'll get into that more in the next video when I tell you how to do sound for a band. This is simply the setup and overview of the mixer, okay? This mix sub button is a good place to troubleshoot some problems if you are not getting sound out of a specific channel. It is probably because you have this engaged, and what that does is that sends the sound where the, when it's up, the mixer level, the yellow knob, will control the volume on that. When it's engaged, it'll send it to the subs. That is this. We do not use a stereo sound system, so I would not mess with these sub levels at all. Don't touch them, just leave them there. Make sure this is not engaged on any channel, this mix sub button. Just keep it up on mix. That's the way to do it, okay? This is your main sound channel. When this is down, the only sound will be heard in the monitors. When you turn this up, that is when the sound will go through the main speakers, which are right there, as well as up at the bar if you are in that setting, okay? So how things are connected here, all right? This cable is your iPod channels, okay? So generally speaking, you'll be running an iPod or an iPad with music from Pandora or whatever source, and this should be when the band is playing running all the time up and just muted, and then when the band goes on a break, they can simply unmute that and house music would come back.